My most memorable sortie was against a chemical weapons research facility, production facility, just north of Baghdad, about 60 miles. We had to evade missiles. It was a difficult target to find, and we had 6 aircraft going there, and they all put their bombs on target and effectively evaded the threat. It was a very important target. With the threat of chemical weapons, we wanted to take that out of the Iraqis' bag of tricks.
US Navy supercarriers, the most powerful warships the world has ever seen. With its mix of state-of-the-art warplanes, a carrier battle group can respond to every kind of situation, anytime, anywhere. Weighing in at up to 100,000 tons and with a flight deck the size of 3 football pitches, the carrier is the largest warship ever built. Its 6,500 strong crew is dedicated to one task: ensuring that its air wing of 85 aircraft is always ready to fly and fight. FA-18 Hornet fighter bombers, F-14 Tomcat fighters, A-6 attack bombers, and a variety of supporting aircraft each have their own distinct task. But in combination, these aircraft can perform almost any mission. The versatile McDonnell Douglas FA-18 Hornet is now the US Navy's most important strike aircraft, and an air wing will include up to 40 aircraft in 3 or 4 squadrons. In service in both single-seat and two-seat versions, the Hornet's missions include close air defense of the carrier and offensive fighter sweeps, as well as ground attack and anti-ship strikes. Equipped with fly-by-wire controls, multi-purpose radars and computerized flight systems, and driven by twin afterburning jets, each delivering more than 7 tons of thrust, the Hornet is the Navy pilot's first choice warplane. In the hands of its highly trained pilots, the Hornet can outfight an enemy in the air, then go on at high or low level to deliver ground attack weapons with lethal precision. The Hornet's greatest strength is its ability to attack ground targets with precision. It can deliver conventional bombs, guns, or guided weapons. FA-18s can carry the widest possible variety of underwing stores. These can include extra fuel tanks to extend the fighter's range. As well as conventional dumb or unguided bombs. The AGM-62 Walleye 2 is an unpowered TV-guided glide bomb used to destroy bunkers, buildings, and bridges. Maverick infrared or laser-guided missiles are especially potent against enemy tanks. Supersonic, with a range of over 20 kilometers, Mavericks were used to deadly effect in the Gulf War. One key Hornet role is the suppression of enemy air defense missile systems and radars. Its principal weapon is the HARM, high-speed anti-radar missile, which uses advanced computerized guidance systems to home in on enemy radar transmissions. Equipped with a sensitive seeker head designed to home in on the splash of a laser beam reflected from a target, the Hornet can drop high-explosive guided weapons with stunning accuracy. It can deliver 500 or 1,000 kilogram laser-guided bombs to within inches of the aim point. Although primarily a strike aircraft, the Hornet is also a superb air superiority fighter. Its short-range air-to-air weapon is the AIM-9 Sidewinder, which homes in on the heat generated by an opposing aircraft. Originally developed in the 1950s and continually updated, the Sidewinder has seen more successful combat than any other missile. For medium-range combat, the Hornet carries the radar-guided AIM-7 Sparrow. This has a range of up to 45 kilometers. The AIM-120 AMRAAM advanced air-to-air missile is as agile as the Sidewinder, but with a longer range than the Sparrow. AMRAAM is equipped with its own radar guidance system, so once the missile has been fired, the Hornet is free to turn away to engage another target. The Hornet was the first of a new generation of high-technology jets to enter US Navy service. A computerized fly-by-wire control system gives the pilot superb aerobatic control in all types of maneuver. The fighter's great agility makes it a feared opponent in a dogfight. For many years, the Grumman A-6 Intruder has been the Air Wing's heavyweight strike bomber. Most carriers include one squadron of 14 of these accurate and hard-hitting aircraft. The Intruder's two-man crew sit side by side. The A-6 is no lightweight. A fully laden Intruder weighs more than 27 tons on the catapult. Intruders were the first attack jets able to fly and fight equally well by day or night. Advanced electronics meant that Intruders were the only aircraft able to attack with precision whatever the weather. US Navy squadrons first took the Intruder into combat over Vietnam in 1965. Designed as a subsonic bomb truck, it could attack in any conditions. For much of the war, the A-6 was the only American warplane able to make precision attacks on Viet Cong targets in the terrible weather of the monsoon season. Intruders carried their weapons externally on 4 underwing stations and 1 under the fuselage. Each carries over 8 tons of bombs, more than the B-17 Flying Fortress bomber of World War II. Early A-6s had a radar targeting system. While the intruder pilot is flying the aircraft, the bombardier navigator in the right-hand seat acquires targets and aims and releases weapons. Later versions of the intruder have a steerable turret beneath the nose. This houses infrared sensors for day or night target acquisition. Using a laser to measure ranges and to designate targets for precision-guided weapons, intruders always get their bombs away at the right time. Paveway laser-guided bombs are the most powerful and accurate conventional weapons in the intruder's arsenal. However, against large or dispersed targets, cluster munitions are more effective. Rockeye cluster bombs usually contain hundreds of dual-purpose anti-personnel and anti-armor grenades that can be filled with a variety of explosive, incendiary, and chemical submunitions. For 3 decades, the intruder provided the US Navy with its all-weather attack capability. But the 1991 Gulf War against Saddam Hussein was probably the big bomber's last campaign. Intruder airframes are getting old, and from the late 1990s, the A-6 will be replaced by stretched versions of the much more modern Hornet. But one intruder variant, which will be around for many years to come, is the EA-6B Prowler. Its job is to protect carrier strike aircraft by jamming and attacking enemy air defense radars. Identifiable by its 4-man cockpit and gold-lined cockpit canopy, the Prowler is the US Navy's primary electronic warrior. Sophisticated radar receivers and jamming transmitters are carried in a bulge at the top of the Prowler's tailplane and in underwing pods. Using advanced electronics to identify enemy air defense systems, Prowlers can jam hostile transmissions, attack using HARM missiles, or they can also pass location data to other aircraft. The air wing also includes at least 4 Ka-6D intruder tankers. Equipped with probe and drogue refueling systems and underwing tanks, these flying gas stations keep the strike force in the air by in-flight refueling. Defense of the fleet is the main task of the Grumman F-14 Tomcat. This big swing-wing jet entered service in the mid-1970s as a pure fighter. Recently, Tomcats have been given a limited attack role. Able to detect and destroy hostile aircraft hundreds of miles out from the carrier, Tomcats form the outer ring of a battle group's layered defense. Flying into battle with the strike force, the F-14 guards the attack aircraft from interference by enemy fighters. The Tomcat's main job remains to take control of the air. and its chief weapon is the astonishing AIM-54 Phoenix. With its 150-kilometer range, it's the Navy's biggest, most capable and most expensive air-to-air weapon. Control of the air wing in the air is the responsibility of the Grumman E-2 Hawkeye Flying Command Post. Its crew controls dozens of simultaneous fighter and ground attack engagements, coordinating combat air patrols, directing in-flight refueling operations, and supplying information to friendly surface forces via data link. The heart of this flying radar station is the giant radome of its APS-139 radar. The Hawkeye can monitor 600 aerial targets simultaneously at ranges of up to 400 kilometers and can detect enemy radar emitters at up to 800 kilometers. Known as the Hoover, the Lockheed S-3 Viking is the carrier's principal anti-submarine aircraft, which can also deliver conventional bombs and missiles. It is also used as an electronic intelligence aircraft, eavesdropping on enemy communications and locating enemy radar systems. And now, a third version of the Viking is replacing the Intruder as the Air Wing's aerial tanker. The Vought A-7 Corsair was the US Navy's main light attack and defense suppression aircraft into the 1980s, when the arrival of the more modern FA-18 Hornet signaled the end of its career. But as the Corsair was being withdrawn from frontline squadrons in 1991, the tough strike fighter was called on to play its part in one last war. On the 2nd of August 1990, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Kuwait. Massive Iraqi forces rolled over the border and seized control of the oil-rich sheikhdom. World condemnation was instant, and America immediately sent F-15 fighters to defend the adjacent oil fields of Saudi Arabia. But fighters were only a stopgap solution. Deterring the Iraqis from attacking Saudi Arabia called for much more. The quickest way to get real fighting power to the Gulf was to mobilize the US Navy. Above all, it meant sending in the aircraft carriers. Within days, carrier battle groups from the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean were on station in the war zone, patrolling the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. Further battle groups were rushed to the combat zone from the United States, with 6 carriers on station by the outbreak of war. En route, their air wings stepped up the pace of flying operations to be ready to go into action immediately if required. Hornet and Intruder squadrons began planning for as many missions as could be foreseen. Briefings on potential targets and Iraqi tactics and equipment became part of the daily routine. Attack Squadron 34 flew A-6 Intruders as part of Air Wing 7 from the deck of the nuclear-powered carrier Dwight D. Eisenhower. Their first task was to deter Saddam Hussein from making a grab for Saudi Arabian oil fields, the world's most important. Uppermost in the minds of all mission planners was the nature of the threat. Iraq possessed one of the world's largest air forces. Its frontline squadrons were equipped with advanced fighters like the Soviet-built MiG-29 Fulcrum and the Dassault Mirage F-1. The Iraqi army was the 4th largest in the world. Led by Saddam Hussein, a ruthless and unscrupulous dictator who would seemingly stop at nothing to gain his ends, it too was well equipped. Neutralizing the Iraqi Air Force would be no simple task. Navy planners knew that their potential foe was based in huge airfield complexes, heavily protected by surface-to-air missiles and anti-aircraft artillery. After 5 months of preparation, the air wings of the 6 carriers in the Middle East are ready for action. Leaving the squadron ready room after receiving their final briefing, Navy combat pilots go to get into their cumbersome flying gear. While the airmen prepare for flight, maintenance crews have been working round the clock on the cavernous hangar deck to ensure that the aircraft are equally ready for action. Aircraft are raised from hangar to flight deck on one of the carrier's huge deck-edge lifts. There, they enter a scene of seeming chaos. But there is order amid the frantic activity. Everyone who works to prepare the air wing for flight wears a colored shirt, which indicates instantly what job he does. Purple shirts are the refueling specialists, while brown shirts maintain the aircraft. Green shirts are responsible for hooking and unhooking catapult and arrestor gear. Red shirts are the ordnance specialists who prepare the air wing's deadly cargo. They oversee the loading of all weapons, from Sidewinder missiles to bombs. Pilots carry out a final walk-round check before entering the cockpit and preparing for launch. Now the activity on deck takes on a deadly purpose as engines are started and the aircraft are moved in turn onto the catapults, ready for launch. Final checks are complete. Aircraft are armed, manned, and ready. Catapult crew hook the nose gear onto the steam catapults, which will accelerate 30 tons of aircraft to more than 250 kilometers per hour in less than 3 seconds. A salute from the pilot to indicate that all is ready. And the order is given. Launch the air wing. During the Gulf War, the carrier's knockout punch came in the form of the Alpha Strike. In the early stages of the war, Iraqi defenses were still a potential threat, and many attacks entered hostile territory at low level. Strikes varied in size depending on the target, from 2 A6s or Hornets right up to multi-carrier forces involving as many as 100 aircraft. It was the responsibility of air wing commanders like Captain Mark Fitzgerald to decide just what was required to do the job.
And I'd have to take the assets that I had, mix and match them, the fighters running in, escorting a strike group of maybe A6s and F-18s. I'd have the Prowler. I might have my S-3s doing electronic listening. I might need some tankers, so I'd have A6s and S-3s for tankers. And I'd form up some kind of a strike package to go in and hit a target.
Expect to see another, they're coming up on the right, sir. Okay, we've got another 5 coming up over here on the right. You two go to the lead tanker, you two go to the number 2 tanker, and they'll brief a port or starboard hose. So, you know, they have a hose to go to, that's what they go to. Okay, got 2 coming up on your left, sir. Is that okay? DL out of aircraft. Yeah, I've got 2 F-18s down here on my left. Can you get that, Dave? It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a pretty day, isn't it?
We were refueling sometimes 6 tankers and 30 fighters in a very small piece of airspace, trying to get everybody across the border, and it was a phenomenal effort to get the airplanes fueled, that many airplanes fueled in such a short period of time, and get them off.
Hey, Benny, give me a quick rep on that tank. We're talking in from this guy.
Tankers were among the unsung heroes of the Gulf War. Heavy weapons loads reduced the combat radius of tactical aircraft, so the flying gas stations were vital. The preparation by the air wings was for a number of expected tasks. First, to play their part in the destruction of Iraq's air defenses, wherever they might be located, in towns or deep in the desert. After that, the mission of the strike forces was to rip the heart out of Iraq's ability to fight, destroying lines of communication and infrastructure. Initial attacks were made at low level, but the destruction of Iraqi air defenses soon meant that Navy jets could switch to attacking from safer, higher altitudes. The ace in the coalition's deck was its ability to use high-technology weaponry to strike with never-before-seen precision. Advanced sensors enabled pilots to locate and lock on to targets by day or night. Bridges, industrial sites, airfields and roads were all attacked. Hornets carried tactical decoys which mimicked the full-size aircraft on radar to fool the enemy. HARM anti-radar missiles soon made it dangerous for the Iraqis to power up their radar systems. Guided weapons like the Walleye TV-guided bomb came into their own in precision attacks. But the most important guided weapon was the Paveway laser-guided bomb. This could be steered to detonate within centimeters of a designated target. On the 17th of January 1991, in the first daylight mission of the Gulf War, a strike package of Hornets was launched from the carriers Saratoga and John F. Kennedy. The Hornets' target was the huge H-3 airfield complex in western Iraq. During the opening raids the previous night, several Allied strike aircraft had been felled by Iraqi surface-to-air missiles and guns. In those early days of the war, Iraqi fighters were still considered a threat. Each of the 4 Hornets from the Saratoga was heavily laden with 4 900-kilogram bombs, but also carried air-to-air missiles for self-protection. The flight was about 50 kilometers from its target when a bandit alert was called by an E-2 Hawkeye, providing airborne early warning. It reported 2 prowling MiGs rapidly closing in on the Hornets. All 4 Hornets quickly located the MiGs and locked their radars onto the target. Lieutenant Commander Mark Fox was flying lead that day.
I quickly switched the radar mode from air to ground to air and got a lock on one of the MiGs. I had the one on the right while my wingman took the MiG on the left. They approached us nose on, supersonic at about Mach 1.2. I shot a Sidewinder first, followed by a Sparrow. Sidewinder hit, and the Sparrow flew into the fireball. My wingman, Lieutenant Mongillo, fired a second Sparrow. He took out the other MiG.
The Hornets had just scored the first Navy kills of the war. The engagement, from the Hawkeye warning to missile impact, took less than 40 seconds. But their mission was not yet over. They switched back to air-to-ground mode and successfully completed their attack mission against the airfield.
Before combat, the most exciting thing that a pilot can do is take off and land on a carrier. Generally landing, it requires a lot of concentration, and there is no room for error out there. During the combat operations, we did in fact have opportunities to bring back live ordnance, and that added just a little bit of tension to the concentration level coming aboard, especially at night. Additionally, we were coming back at a reasonably low fuel state most of the time, so we didn't have the time or the gravy, as we call it, to miss the wires and make a lot of approaches at the ship. We really needed to get on deck the first time. It's a pretty exhilarating experience. The combat tended to get the adrenaline pumping, and believe it or not, even landing aboard the ship at night after the combat missions became reasonably routine.
The 6 U.S. Navy carriers on station in the Red Sea and Persian Gulf kept up an extremely high intensity of operations during the war. Aircraft returning from missions had to be cleared from the arresting wires and moved clear to allow the next aircraft to land. Aircraft requiring maintenance had to be taken below, while others were serviced on deck before being refueled and rearmed, ready for the next mission. Carrier air wings generally flew 2 major strikes per day, with crews working around the clock to ensure the maximum number of aircraft were available for operations. Typically, each carrier would have flown some 11,000 sorties in its service in the war zone, and its air wing would have taken part in more than 100 airstrikes during the 6 weeks of combat, dropping more than 1 million kilograms of ordnance in the process. For the air crews, it was an exhausting time. Missions averaged 5 hours in length, which was a strain even to these highly trained warriors. but their contribution to the campaign was extremely valuable, a fact which was fully recognized by the Supreme Coalition Commander, General H. Norman Schwarzkopf.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention naval operations. The Navy's done a great job supporting the air campaign, and the Navy has flown over 3,500 sorties from our 6 carriers, and they've also launched more than 260 Tomahawk missiles.
The end result of Saddam Hussein's mad gamble was the annihilation of his power and influence in the Middle East. Much of his army lay smashed by coalition forces on the Basra Road. His air force was non-existent, its bases smashed by Allied bombing. Free Kuwaiti forces returned to their homeland in triumph, and the US Navy carriers had played a vital part in the final victory.
So the aircraft carrier is the centerpiece of how we carry out our national policies throughout the world. And the Navy revolves around its carrier battle groups. It's the most important piece of equipment I think we have in our national arsenal to keep the peace. This carrier has more capability than any ship that ever put to sea, and it's constantly being upgraded in those capabilities. It's kind of like a fortress that goes to sea with self-protection that's hard to defeat. It would take massive numbers of weapons to be able to get through our defenses, and so therefore, just by the size and the protection that we have within our battle group, there's nothing right now in the world that can really potentially scratch the defenses that we do have. The aircraft carrier today is even more valuable than it has ever been.